Today, we are answering questions off of Twitter. When is a good time to start a podcast? We got that coming up next. Hey there, podcaster. My name is the Shannon, radio broadcaster, podcaster, and podcast producer. And today's video is brought to you by my guide on 6 clever ways to monetize a podcast. What you're looking at right here with all the scribbling and everything is actually a draft of my expanded version. There's a ton of pages. I'm actually at 81 pages, and I have about 20 more pages to go. It's a very in-depth and comprehensive guide on how you can monetize your podcast. So much good information on this. Now, I will be giving this guide out for those who are on my email list before I release it to the general public. So you can get that right now. Actually, I wouldn't say you can get this right now, but you can get the condensed version right now by clicking the link down below in the section of the description. And of course, you can get on that list. And when I release this, and get ready to release this, I will send it to you for free. It will be only for a limited time, and then after that, it's no longer free. Okay, so make sure you get this, the 6 clever ways of how to monetize your podcast. The condensed version is very condensed, as you'll see, but this one will be a little more in-depth for you, okay? So today, let's go ahead and talk about or answer some questions that I have gotten off of Twitter. In particular, this particular question that we have from Black Clouds Media that asked me a question based off of a tweet that I had made a few days ago. And basically, if you're ever on my Twitter feed, you can see that I send out informational tweets on podcasting every now and again. And so they tweeted back to me and they said, well, you know, your topic here is when should I stop a podcast? How about we reverse it? Let's talk about when should you start a podcast. Now, before I jump into today's topic, I want to encourage those subscribers who have been with me for a long time, and I know it seems like, oh God, like I don't need to know this. However, I want you to engage with me on this particular post, and I want you to help comment in the section below, because there are tons of people that come to this channel looking for information about podcasting, and they're looking for that encouragement. And your words might be able to help them out if you share your story of how you started your podcast. So leave comments down below about how you started your podcast, and that might help someone be inspired to start their own podcast without feeling like they'll be failing at it or have any fear about it, okay? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you 3 of my own particular tips, or I guess not tips, but my guides or ways in which I think you should start your own podcast, all right? Now, the first one that I want to talk about is based around conversations that you have with your friends, okay? You probably have had this conversation with someone. You say you're at the bar, or say you're at a friend's house, or say you're out camping, and you're just having conversations, and the conversations are hilarious, right? They're so much fun. And then someone says, we should start a podcast. And you're like, you know, this would be a pretty good idea. We could start a podcast. Let's think about that. Let's start looking into it. And then they start searching Google and YouTube, and they come across a channel like this one, and then they're like, okay, this is what I need to do. So that's when I think you should consider starting a podcast. If you feel that your content is good enough, maybe to get laughs, or maybe it's informational and it will help people achieve a goal or solve a problem or anything like that. However, I will tell you this right now. If it's going to be something like a comedy podcast, you have to make sure that you really do relate to your audience, and your audience can relate back to you. Too many inside jokes might confuse your audience, and they may not know what you're talking about. So you have to let your audience in, and you have to really kind of open the door and allow your audience to know who you are, and kind of set the setting for them so that they understand where your podcast is coming from and why you are doing it. It's important that you have a very specific niche. If that is the case, there's tons of niches inside of iTunes that you can go check out and see what they are all about. And then another thing that is important is whenever you go in and you start titling your podcast, this is a big thing and it's important. When you start titling your podcast, people are going to be looking for catchy titles. So you might have a podcast that's all about dating, and there's 1,000 podcasts out there that are about dating, but yours might be unique based off of what you might be talking about based off of the title. So if you need information on how to title a podcast, I have a link that is up here that you can go ahead and click on in the card, and that'll take you on over there so you can learn how to title a podcast. Next, let's talk about another scenario. You are a business owner. You are a small business owner. You're an online entrepreneur. You're someone who's in business. You want to get your t-shirt company out to the masses, and people keep telling you need to start your own podcast because you can generate leads off of your podcast. And you're just like, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't know how to do that. And that is a common thing for a lot of entrepreneurs who just don't know how to use podcasting for generating leads, but it is a wonderful tool. impossible to generate leads. I will tell you this right now, as long as you are consistent. Anything that I'm talking about, whether it's these conversations you're having with friends or you're doing some business podcast or whatever, all of this is all based around consistency and being consistent with releasing a podcast either every week or every other day or however you want to set your schedule. So this is all based in consistency, but in particular with the business podcast, if you want to start generating interest with your products and your services, this can be a really good way to generate leads for yourself. So you can leverage the audio and leverage the consistency of dropping a new podcast every week and allow people to come in and learn more about you. As I continue to say all the time in these videos, people once you get into people's ears, they start to trust you a little more. And once you start to open up a little more to them, they start to really trust you and want to gravitate more towards your energy. Especially if you have really great energy, they will gravitate towards you like you wouldn't believe. So this is a great way to generate leads, but I will tell you this, it does take time to build. I mean, anything takes time to build. When I restarted this YouTube channel, it's taken me a year to get it up to this point to where I have, the amount of subscribers that I do have, and I was basically starting from zero. So it takes consistency every single time, and you have to be patient with that, but make sure that you set your systems up in place so that when the time does come, that you can generate those leads and drive people maybe to your website or into your store. That might be a way that might be a reason why you want to start a podcast. Another way might be that you want to get really creative. There are a lot of storytelling podcasts that are out there that are very creative. They are not by no means in the vein of talk radio. They are more about storytelling. They're like audiobooks. And you have a creative streak that is inside you, and you want to share that creative streak through storytelling and through acting and through the directing and all that. And there are plenty of podcasts that are out there that do that, and you can do that. So maybe that's another reason why you want to start a podcast. You have a real talent of writing scripts, or you have a real talent of telling stories, and you want to be able to express that. That might be another way you can do that. I will say this though, when you create a storytelling podcast, depending on the type of podcast that you want to create in the niche of storytelling, it's going to take a lot of time to get out that script. It's going to take a lot of time to find maybe certain actors. It's going to take a lot of time for the editing. It does take time, and those particular podcasts are typically in seasonal format. So it's just going to really be up to you on how you want to see the success and the growth of your own podcast when it comes to that creative niche. At the end of the day, whenever you start a podcast, a lot of this all depends on how disciplined you are with completing tasks to make sure that the podcasts get out. When you first start your podcast, or whether you are a seasoned podcaster, you learn that there has to be a discipline that comes with creating content on a regular basis, whether that be finding guests, or whether it be researching for your show, or whether it's actually the editing process. The consistency of discipline is the one thing that is going to get you through and make you create a podcast that is going to grow over time. You have to remember this. It is very hard to stay motivated, but the most important thing is the discipline. When you don't want to do it and you don't want to release a podcast, you still go through it and you do it. That's what this podcasting game is all about. That's what a YouTube game is all about. That's what a blogging game is all about. That's what a workout routine is all about. Everything is all about this discipline of making sure that people understand that you are pumping out content for them so you can help them, so they can trust you. So I hope this video was helpful. I mean, I figured I'd give a shout out to Black Clouds Media and answer their question, but I hope that it actually really truly does help out. And if you know someone who is struggling with the idea of starting a podcast, or maybe need some ideas, share this video with them and help them out, and let them know that they have every potential to start a podcast that can be great and impact lives out there, whether it's through laughs or whether it's through education or whatever it may be. They can make an impact as long as they stick with it and have the discipline to do what it takes to make a podcast every single week, or whatever your schedule may be. Now, if you are a seasoned podcast, I want to remind you, I want you to leave a comment down in the section below and tell me how you came up with the idea of starting your own podcast and what inspired you to start your own podcast. I know that I would appreciate it, but I really know that those who are looking for the information on this will really appreciate it as well, and they will love the fact that they can read someone else's account of how they started their own podcast. Now, if you are watching this right now and you're still confused on on how to start a podcast, whether it be talk style or whether it be storytelling style, or you just don't know where to start with the equipment, I have an essential equipment guide that you can go ahead and download. It is in the description down below, or you can find it up here in the card, and you can go ahead and download that today, and that will help you with the equipment or give you some ideas of the equipment that you can get or need to start your podcast today. In the meantime, I appreciate you guys so much for watching today's video. It means so much to me. Make sure that you hit that like button, and of course hit the subscribe button too, and the little bell to get notified when I drop a brand new video on this particular YouTube channel. And over here on the end screen, I will have either a playlist or a video that I think might help you out in some part of your journey of your podcast. In the meantime, I appreciate everything that you guys do, and by contributing to this video and this channel, and especially in the community section. When I'm posting out in the community section, you guys can comment. We are working on building out a whole different community that is going to be off of YouTube, so that I can help podcasters the way that I think they deserve and need the help. All right. So again, make sure you check out that video on the end screen, and I'll see you next week.